Here it is again, a heart of excitement in the form of a girl who hates her life as she sits alone on the floor of her bedroom waiting for answers, wasting time.
So a little while ago, this band called Glass Beach put out their first album, appropriately titled the First Glass Beach Album, and it's good. Like, really good. I highly recommend that you go listen to this album. It's extremely comfy and cathartic and moving, and manages to have an incredibly uplifting take on the idea of support networks and found family, while at the same time being brutally realistic about how fucked up the world we live in is thanks to self-perpetuating cultural hegemony and the ever-present forces of capitalism. It's one of my favorite albums of the last decade, so today I want to look at one of my favorite tracks on it, Bedroom Community. Before we jump in, note that this is going to be a purely lyrical analysis. I don't know anything about music theory, and I don't think I could articulate what I like about the instrumentation well enough for it to be interesting viewing. Additionally, a quick content warning, this song deals with suicide, so if that's an uncomfortable topic for you, you might want to leave this one be. So let's jump right in with the opening. Here it is again, a heart of excitement in the form of a girl who hates her life as she sits alone on the floor of her bedroom waiting for answers, wasting time. Nothing too unusual so far. We've set up a female protagonist, so to speak, likely dealing with some sort of depression or social disorder. She's isolated and lost, trying to wait out the world until it starts making sense, as many of us can likely relate to. I know I can. Here it is again, the son of a soldier, Remington shotgun, rolled up sleeves to keep Satan out of the walls of the suburbs, his last bastion of modernity. But Satan waits upstairs, watching over his daughter. She writes emo songs, she's so depressed, her lyrics are naive, but she still sings her heart out the only way she knows how to confess. After a brief instrumental, we get our second character, the girl's father. His father fought in a war, and he evidently considers this a significant part of his identity given that it's the first aspect of him mentioned. He's concerned about moral threats to his presumably middle-class lifestyle considering the suburban setting, which are conceptualized as a sort of invader that needs to be fought back, even physically at times, as indicated by the lines, Remington shotgun, rolled up sleeves to keep Satan out of his suburb. The fact that this threat is referred to as Satan suggests that he might be Christian in the American sense, with possibly some evangelical or fundamentalist overtones, but that's not necessarily the case. It's possible Satan is just being used as a stand-in for more secular moralist ideas of invading immorality. Regardless of whether his fervor is religious or secular, this guy is definitely a reactionary, as what he's trying to protect from this moral threat is his conception of modernity, likely defined as the status quo of his current life. Satan is the encroachment of new ideas of what's socially acceptable. But, ironically, these new ideas are already here, and in fact have more of an influence on his daughter than he does. Satan waits upstairs watching over her even as she sits alone in her room. Father is outside, the danger is inside, and stands by as she struggles to express the emotions running through her. And as she gets up to shut the bedroom door, behind her he stands right beside her. She's trying to get her head on straight, with box dye hair to match her black thigh highs and scratch nail polish. She performs femininity. She laughs so hard I watch her lose her balance, fall over backwards to the arms of Mephistopheles. But she'll never leave her bedroom in this bedroom community. We get a little more indication here that Satan is closer to the girl than her father is. She's shutting herself in, but he's still beside her, and at the end of this segment, she falls into his arms. There's also an interesting bit here about her presentation. Black thigh highs, dyed black hair, scratched black nail polish. Not enough detail to identify a particular subculture, but definitely in the neck of the woods where you'd find emo and goth and such. The first verse did allude to emo songs she writes. Where it really grabs my attention is when this is described as performing femininity. First of all, this is a weird framing because of the different ways performing femininity is constructed for AMAB versus AFAB people. The aesthetic described, black clothes, dyed black hair, dark nail polish that hasn't been maintained, that's not broadly considered performing femininity properly in cishet culture. Girls who dress this way are admonished for being unladylike or even mannish depending on how far they go with the aesthetic. On top of that, cis girls don't usually get described as performing femininity regardless of how they dress or act. since that's just considered the natural way for them to act, with like 3 sets of quotation marks around natural. On the other hand, AMAB people who dress emo or goth are considered to be presenting more feminine than they should be. Men aren't supposed to be putting effort into their hair or painting their nails or even really coordinating their outfits in any serious way. But cis dudes are still not broadly referred to as performing femininity, even if they do dress in an overtly feminine way. Performing femininity is usually an idea reserved for trans girls and feminine non-binary people. I realize this is a bit of an aggressive reading based on literally one line in the song, but I feel like it fits the thematic content of it pretty well, and it's not like this would be the only song on the First Class Beach album to deal with trans people. Yoshi's Island does so pretty explicitly with references to HRT medication and misgendering. Obviously, I have no way of knowing the actual intent of this line, but I think it supports a trans reading fairly well, so I'm gonna go with it because I prefer it. It fits very well additionally with the idea of being trapped in her bedroom, but she'll never leave her bedroom in this bedroom community. As a lot of trans women and trans femme non-binary people find themselves essentially trapped in the safety of their private space for fear of mistreatment should they present how they want to in public. He said you'll never be okay, if you don't come to your senses. With you, everything's the end of the world. Melancholia can spread like a virus. I'm sure you got it from that stupid girl. You'll never be okay if you don't come to your senses. But I feel so defenseless, so alone. I thought he was right when he said that he loved me. He's still thinking of me from up there. Oftentimes, people with mental illnesses are treated as if their health issues are a moral failing. They're suffering something they brought on themselves. Trans and non-binary people dealing with the trauma of growing up in a society that denies their existence and abuses them are particularly prone to being subjected to this sort of moralistic shaming, as their pain is seen as the natural result of the nonsensical decision to transition to the opposite gender or an identity that's not viewed as legitimate by society. If we would just come to our senses and adhere to the gender that was assigned to us, then we wouldn't be dealing with these negative feelings. Never mind that it's exactly these feelings of discomfort with the body we were born into and the gender we were assigned that leads many of us to transition in the first place. The girl's father is even likening these sorts of issues to a virus, mirroring the common transphobic rhetoric which treats gender dysphoria and trans identity as a social contagion that you can catch by hanging out around other trans people, see rapid onset gender dysphoria. And of course, all this dismissive, invalidating, and victim-blaming rhetoric is often spoken from a cloyingly loving posture, a smokescreen of it's for your own good. Religion also plays into it, the idea that you need to conform to the prescribed behaviors not just for your health in this world, but in the next as well, which is what I believe is being alluded to with he's still thinking of me from up there. And as they stop to look at her, they won't look further, like it's not a murder, it's an inevitable tragedy. The bloody hands of all the heartless fuckers who emotionally fucked her to monetize her suffering, flipping through a spiral notebook for some sad, hopeless words to turn into a liturgy, so she'll never leave her bedroom in this bedroom community. Here's where the song turns around and stops using the abuser's framing. The girl is dead and she was killed by those around her. The people closest to her and those responsible won't see it as their fault. They won't look into how their behavior contributed to the suffering that led her to take her life, but the fact remains that they and the society they live in and contribute to created a world that's unlivable for those struggling with mental illness and identities that the cultural hegemony declares unacceptable. And it's not just those who are antagonistic to marginalized people either. Under the structure of capitalism, even art and products that we take refuge in and connect with are turned against us, a vector to siphon profits through our pain and turn our outlets of emotional distress into a way to prop up the existing structure. A lot of this pain-marketed capital is even designed to reinforce the problems that hurt us and led us to seek it out in the first place, and the result is a self-perpetuating cycle of pain and death. Once the system has used us up and spit us out, it'll steal our accounts of our experiences and use them to attract the next generation into its trap, leaving our real selves trapped in the bedroom we died in. The rest of the song consists mostly of instrumental with one more new line. But we'll never leave our bedroom in this bedroom community. Marginalized people in the modern age tend to seek each other out via the global connectivity of the internet, building decentralized communities from the safety of our own bedrooms. And for many of us, they're the only hope we have. The song closes out with a refrain of the opening putting us right back where we start. alone in our bedroom, waiting for answers, wasting time. There is hope in found family and distributed community, but at the end of the day, many of us are lost, even those who are still alive.